Did someone teach you to hide your pain? To smile on the outside, while your soul is silently screaming inside? If so, this video is for you. This is the story of Antoni, a boy who believed that being strong meant never crying. But God had other plans. Plans of healing, comfort, and flowers that bloom even from the soil of sorrow. If this message is already touching your heart, like the video now, comment, "I don't want to hide the pain anymore," and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Subscribe to the channel and walk with us through stories that reignite faith and turn silence into hope. Chapter 1. The Silence of Antoni. Do you ever feel like you have to hide what you feel? Like your pain is too heavy to share? This is the story of Antoni, a boy of faith, but with a heart full of silence. Antoni lived with his grandmother, Donna Selina, in a simple house atop a hill. He was only 12 years old, but had already learned what many adults struggle with, the weight of hiding pain. Since losing his parents, he kept everything to himself. He smiled when he had to. He said he was fine even when his world felt like it was collapsing inside. One morning, while sweeping the backyard, he found a small injured bird. He carefully placed it in a shoebox and cared for it quietly. He didn't tell anyone. That night the bird died, and again Antoni didn't cry. He buried it with his own hands and returned to the house as if nothing had happened. But Donna Selina noticed. She sat beside him, took his hand, and asked gently, "Why don't you cry, my son?" He looked down and replied, "Because if I talk about it, it will hurt more, and I don't want to bother anyone." Those words broke her heart. Maybe they're breaking yours too. How many times have you stayed silent for fear of being a burden? How many times have you hidden your pain behind a polite smile? Leave in the comments, who taught you to hide the pain? Donna Selina, with tears in her eyes, opened her Bible to Psalm 34:18 and read, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." You are not a burden, Antoni. Your pain matters, and God is closer than you think. At that moment, something inside him shifted. A timid light began to glow. The seed of hope had been planted. Like this video, if this message touched something inside you, it helps more people find comfort through this story. Are you ready to let God touch the pain you learned to hide? Chapter 2. The Hidden Notebook. In the days that followed, something inside Antoni remained unsettled. His grandmother's words about God being near to the brokenhearted stayed with him like a melody that wouldn't leave. It was as if a silent voice whispered, "You don't have to carry it all alone." One cold afternoon, while organizing the room, he found something forgotten behind an old sewing box, a blue-covered notebook with blank pages. As he held it, he felt it wasn't there by accident. Sitting on the bed, he picked up a pencil and wrote, without thinking much, "Today I felt like crying, but I swallowed it again." In that single line, Antoni released more than words. He let go of something he'd hidden for so long, and there began a secret habit. Every night he wrote in that notebook. They weren't regular diary entries. They were prayers in the shape of confessions. He wrote to God about missing his parents, about the fear of not being enough, about the silence inside him. One night he wrote, "God, do you still hear me even when I only write and don't say a word?" He stared at the sentence, hoping for an answer from the page. He didn't hear a voice, but he felt peace. And sometimes peace is the clearest answer God gives. Have you ever written a letter to God? Have you ever put your pain on paper? Tell us in the comments. Maybe your story can bring comfort to someone else. A few days later, Antoni left the notebook open on his bed. When he returned, he found Donna Selina reading it, her eyes full of tears. He froze. He wanted to snatch it away, but she gently held his hand and said, "My son, what you wrote here is more powerful than any sermon. This is prayer. This is truth. This is you." He lowered his eyes, ashamed. "I just don't know how to pray anymore." "You are praying, yes. Every word you wrote is a soundless prayer. God read all of it. Even before you wrote it." She opened her Bible to Romans 8:26. "The Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groans that words cannot express." That verse pierced Antoni's heart like a beam of light. He realized he didn't need perfect words. He only needed honesty. If this story is touching your heart, subscribe to the channel. Here you will always find words that welcome your pain and rekindle your faith. That night, Antoni slept with the notebook beside his bed, knowing for the first time that his pain was being heard, not only by his grandmother, but by God, and that was the beginning of healing. Chapter 3, The Voice from the Mountain. That Friday, Donna Selina invited Antoni to do something he always avoided: climb the mountain. It was her tradition, a sacred moment. Every first Friday of the month, she walked to the top of the hill where an old stone altar stood. There she prayed in silence, laying her heart before heaven. "Will you come today, my son?" she asked with a gentle smile. Antoni hesitated. He thought about saying no, as he always did, but something inside him said yes. The climb was slow, the wind was strong, and the sky was gray. But with every step, it felt like a bit of his inner weight was lifting. When they reached the top, Donna Selina knelt and prayed silently. Antoni moved a little away, sat on a wide stone, took out his notebook, and began to write, "God, I'm here. I don't have fancy words. Just an open heart. I don't want to hide my pain anymore. I just want to know, do you miss me too?" When he finished writing, he stared out at the landscape. A deep silence covered everything. The wind, the trees, the heavy sky, all seemed to wait with him. Then a dry leaf, carried by the wind, gently landed on his notebook. A single drop of rain followed and touched the page. And in that moment, Antoni felt, not with his ears, but with his soul, a response. "Yes, Antoni, I never stopped missing you." He began to cry. Not tears of sadness, tears of connection, comfort, of something that finally made sense inside him. Have you ever had a moment when you felt that God answered you without words? Share it in the comments. Let's build a space of faith and welcome. From a distance, Donna Selina watched him and came closer, sitting beside him. She placed a hand on his back and said, "My son." Many think faith is never feeling pain, but true faith is walking forward even when everything hurts. Faith is trusting that God will use even your tears to water something new. She then opened her small Bible and read Isaiah 41:10. "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you." Antoni held on to that verse like a lifeline in the sea. He was no longer the same boy who had climbed that hill. The pain was still there, but now there was presence, there was company. If this story is touching you, share it with someone else who is also climbing their own mountain. Sometimes, what a person needs most is to know they're not alone. As they walked back down, Antoni felt his steps lighter. The wind didn't seem so cold anymore, and deep inside he knew something within him had started to bloom. Chapter 4. The Letter That Was Never Sent. The morning after the trip to the mountain, Antoni woke up feeling different. The pain was still there, the longing too, but something inside him had changed. It was as if his once quiet faith had started to speak. But there was one feeling he still couldn't fully name, a deep, unspoken grief, missing his parents. He had cried for them, prayed, written, but never addressed them directly. That afternoon he sat on the porch, notebook in his lap, took a deep breath and began to write, "Dear Dad, dear Mom." The words flowed like a river. He wrote about the nights of fear, about pretending to be okay on his birthdays, about dreams where he saw them for just a moment and woke up with tears on his pillow. But he also wrote about Donna Selina, about the mountain, about God, and how he was learning to live again. "I still miss you every day, but now I know that God sustains me. And I know he still takes care of me, even when everything feels hard." When he finished, he folded the paper carefully and placed it inside his Bible, between the pages his grandmother had marked. There, he found John 14:18. "I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you." He smiled. It felt like that promise had been written just for him. Have you ever wanted to write to someone who's gone? Held something in your heart for too long? Write it down. Sometimes letters don't need an address. They just need to leave your soul. That evening he showed the letter to Donna Selina. She read it quietly, slowly. When she finished, she said nothing. She simply embraced him. A long, silent hug full of meaning. This, my son, is healing. This is release. You wrote what your heart needed to let go of. Not every letter needs to be delivered. Some just need to be written. Antoni rested his head on her shoulder. He felt a weight lifting from him for the first time in a long time. If you're going through a healing process, if this story spoke to you, subscribe to the channel. Together, we are creating a safe space for faith, pain, and hope to meet. That night, Antoni fell asleep with the Bible beside his pillow and the notebook on his chest. And he dreamed. He dreamed of a field full of flowers. In the middle of it, a gentle voice whispered, "Son, you are not alone. I see you. I heal you. I love you." The letter was never sent, but it arrived exactly where it needed to go, into the hands of God. Chapter 5, The Tree in the Yard. The week passed slowly, like a gentle breeze after a storm. Antoni woke up early, helped Donna Selina in the garden, and kept his notebook close, no longer as a place to hide, but as a sacred altar where soul and heaven met. One morning, while watering the plants, he noticed something new, right where he had buried the bird he tried to save. A small green sprout was breaking through the earth. It was fragile, barely noticeable, but alive. He knelt beside it and watched. It wasn't just a plant. It had meaning. It was as if the earth itself whispered, "The pain you buried here is blooming into hope." Carefully, he placed a dry branch beside it and tied the sprout with string so the wind wouldn't break it. Then he found a piece of wood in the shed and wrote with charcoal, "Who taught you to hide the pain?" He planted the sign next to the sprout, not as a question for the world, but as a personal reminder. Now he knew hiding pain was not strength. It was postponing healing. Have you ever seen something beautiful grow from your pain? Have you realized that even sorrow can become fertile when given to God? Share in the comments. Your story might plant a seed of hope in someone else. Donna Selina saw everything from the doorway. Her eyes filled again, not with sorrow this time, but with quiet emotion. She walked over and said, "This tree, when it grows, will give shade to many tired souls. Just like your story, my son." Antoni looked at her with tenderness. For the first time, he felt that his painful past wasn't just memory. It was a root. Something new was growing, and he was part of it. That night, before sleeping, he wrote in his notebook, "Even with flaws, even with loss, God plants in us. And if we allow him, he makes it bloom." Then he opened the Bible and found Psalm 26:5. "Those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy." It felt like a seal from heaven. If this story touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe. Let's turn pain into testimony and silence, into hope. Before bed, Antoni looked out the window. The little tree stood firm, breathing under the moonlight. He smiled, closed his eyes, and whispered, "Thank you, God, for teaching me not to hide anymore. Thank you for planting in me." And he slept in peace, because now he knew even the quietest pain, when given to God, can bloom into trees that offer shade and shelter for oneself and for others. Who taught you to hide the pain? Antoni was no longer the same boy. The pain was still there, because some losses don't disappear. But now that pain had a voice. It had a place. It had a purpose. He learned that hiding pain doesn't make it go away. It only makes it heavier. And when we open our hearts, even with fear and weakness, God steps in. And when God steps in, even silence begins to bloom. Antoni's story is also the story of many. Maybe it's yours. Maybe you too were taught to hide what you feel, to pretend you're okay while your soul is crying. Maybe no one ever told you that it's okay to cry in God's presence, that your wounds are not a shame, they're a doorway to healing. Today you can begin again. You can let the pain rise, not to destroy you, but to be transformed. God doesn't expect you to be strong all the time. He only asks you to be honest. Laying down your pain is the first step toward healing. Trusting that even your deepest wounds can be turned into seeds of hope, that is faith. Pain can be soil, and God, the gardener, knows exactly how to make even the driest ground bear fruit. Like Antoni, you can write a new story. Not the story of someone without scars, but of someone who, despite the pain, chose to believe again. Because in the end, it's not about hiding what hurts. It's about trusting that God can use even your sorrow to reveal His grace.